So your vyavahara has pratyakshadi vyavahara means what? Pratyakshalingadi prayukto your vyavahara. That vyavahara or the transaction which proceeds from such things as perception, inference, etc., which is based on perception, inference, etc. What is that nature? Drashta, Anumata, Shrota Aham. Drashta Aham, I am the seer. Anumata Aham, I am inferrer. Shrota Aham, I am hearer. So this kind of ityadi rupaha vyavahara. This is the vyavahara. Saha vyavahara. Indriyadini. That adi includes again what? That anumanam, etc. Sense organs, reasoning, etc. Indriyadini. What are these indriyadini? Mamataspadani. That ahamaspadam, deha is what? Ahantaspada. And indriyani is what? Mamataspada. So mamataspadam is that which is locus of mamata. Meaning indriyas are taken as mind. So the sense organs, etc., which are taken as mind. Mamataspadani agruhitva, unless one brings into service the sense organs which are branded by his mind, na sambhavati, this vyavahara, which is of the nature of pratyaksha anumana, etc., or the vyavahara based on the pratyaksha anumana, where the vyavahara is what? I am the seer, I am hearer, I am thinker. When do I say I am hearer? When the vyavahara of the nature of hearing takes place. And then that brings about this conclusion on my part that I am the hearer. And all of that cannot take place unless I identify with the hearing system or the faculty of hearing. It's one way of explaining a sentence. Another way of explaining, it's all pandityam in many cases. So another one, yadva, when it doesn't add into any meaning, then it is purely pandityam. And then there is a pandityam here in several cases. So another one is like this. Yadva tani, because it's a simple sentence, then you can complicate it also. So it looks to me like anyway. Yadva tani mamatvena anupadaya yo vyavaharaha sahana iti yojana. Well, it shows his devotion also to Bhashyakara. That whenever Bhashyakara says something, there several meanings are contained in there and he is exploring them. So that way, his own devotion also is shown there. So that's how we would give him benefit of doubt. It's not his exhibition of panditya, but rather his devotion to the Bhashyakara. Yadva, or that sentence can be looked upon in another way also. Tani mamatvena anupadaya yo vyavaharaha sahana iti yojana sana sambhavati. So, tani mamatvena anupadaya, unless it's in the deha indriyani, etc., unless they are taken as mama, that vyavahara that takes place is not possible. What is the difference in these two explanations? He himself explains. Purvatra anupadana asambhava kriyayoho eko vyavaharaha karta iti tva pratyaya sadhu. The thing is, there is a tva pratyaya involved there, and that sentence is a little complicated also. Indriyani anupadaya. Now who, he says, without taking resort of the sense organs. Now who is the one who does not take indriya into service? Is it Devadatta or is Vyavahara? Both of them can be karta. Unless is Vyavahara of the nature of Pramana Prameya, unless is Vyavahara accepts this indriya etc. as mama or brings indriyas into service, that Vyavahara is not possible. Or you can say, unless Devadatta takes indriya etc. as mind, this Vyavahara is not possible. In one case, Vyavahara becomes karta of the subject, in another case, Devadatta becomes the subject. So, tva pratyaya, anupadaya, it is lep pratyaya, which is a modification of tva, and the rule is that samana kartrukatvam must be there. So, wherever tva means one kriya is complete and other kriya is going on. Anupadaya, not having taken them, vyavahara na sambhavati, the vyavahara is not possible. And so, what is it? Gatva bhunkte. Having gone, the fellow eats, you can say. Then, when you say gatva bhunkte, there is tva pratyaya in the gam dhatu, so having gone he eats, both of them, karta must be one. So, karta of going and karta of eating must be one alone, then alone we can say gatva bhunkte. If Rama has gone and Lakshmana is eating, and you cannot say Rama gatva, Lakshmana bhunkte, you cannot say that. So the karta must be the same wherever tva pratyaya is employed, because it shows that one action is complete and the other action is now going on. So anupadaya, wherever a prefix is employed, then the tva pratyaya is converted into ya pratyaya, lyap pratyaya. So instead of anupadatva, it is said anupadaya. So anupada, so then it is datva instead of anupadaya, which meaning is the same. So idea is not having taken into service the sense organs, the vyavahara is not possible. Who has not taken the sense organs into service? Is Devadatta not taken them into service, or vyavahara is not taken them into service? Both ways it can be explained. Says Purvatra Anupadana. Anupadana is what? Indriyani Anupadaya. The indriyas not having taken to service. Asambhava vyavahara asambhavati. Anupadana asambhava kriyayoho ekaha vyavahara karta. That vyavahara, when the vyavahara does not bring into service the sense organs, that vyavahara is not possible. In that case, vyavahara is the samana karta for anupadanam and asambhava. Kriyayoho vyavahara karta is tva pratyaya sadhu. We must explain that sadhutvam is tva pratyaya. What is sadhutvam? Samana kartrukatvam. So only when you can show that one karta is involved, then alone tva pratyaya is justified. Sadhu is justified. That tva pratyaya is justified because the vyavahara has the karta anupadaya na sambhavati. In the first vakya, that would be the explanation. Second one, uttaratra anupadana vyavaharayoho ekatma kartrukatvat tat sadhutvam is bhedaha. In the second case, the Devadatta is a karta for anupadana vyavahara. So Devadatta not having taken the sense organs into service, Devadatta cannot do vyavahara. In that case, the anupadana and vyavahara kartrukatvam belongs to Devadatta, and that also the tva pratyaya is justified. That's all it is. All that long explanation is given in Purnanandiya, but then it means this. So, Purna Ratna Prabha says, Indriyadishu, to make it brief, Indriyadishu mama iti adhyasa bhave andhadeheva drashtutvad vyavahara nasyadadi bhavaha. Somebody says, I am blind. When can one say I am blind? Only when there is identification with the eye. So this is a vyavahara, I am blind. Such vyavahara would not be possible unless this person had identification with the eye. So, Indriyadishu mama iti adhyasa abhave. In fact, it is aham iti adhyasa. When he says, I am blind, then he takes the eyes as the eye. Because eyes are blind, he says, I am blind. But still, tentatively it is said, mama iti adhyasa abhave andhadeheva. So that I am blind, this kind of a drashtutvad vyavahara nasyad. Or, another way of looking at it is, if just as a blind person cannot perform the vyavahara of seeing, so also Devadatta would not be able to perform the vyavahara of seeing unless he identifies with eyes. Just as a blind man who doesn't have eyes and therefore doesn't have the mamakara in the eyes is not able to perform the vyavahara of seeing, so also Devadatta would not be able to perform the vyavahara of seeing if he doesn't have identification with eyes, meaning he closes the eyes. Then Devadatta cannot perform the vyavahara of seeing because he doesn't bring the eyes into operation. Suppose you withdraw your attention from your hands and legs, then movement is not possible. Unless something happens to the body, then somehow the brain must be functioning. Some people's hands and legs move, without that effort. Now there, we have to say that some kind of other adhyasa is in the mind, because Purva Samskaras bring about that activity without his effort. Something like that we'll have to say, So andhadeheva, just as andha, muka or badiraha, just as they do not have vyavahara, so also this person would not have vyavahara if he doesn't take his eyes, ears, etc. as his, that's the idea. Iti bhavaha. Alright, then yet another question. Says Ratna Bhavana, Indri adhyasenaiva vyavaharat alam, vyavaharat alam dehadhyasena iti. It's okay. If you say that identification with sense organs is a primary requirement for conducting this vyavahara of seeing, hearing, etc., then why do you say that it is necessary to have identification in the body? Why don't you merely say that identification of sense organs is enough? So indriyadehe, indriya adhyasenaiva vyavaharat. Since vyavahara cannot take place unless there is identification in indriya, with hands or legs like organs of action, or eyes, ears, organs of perception, unless there is identification with them, vyavahara is not possible. So then, alam dehadhyasena, why is it necessary for you to say that there must be dehadhyasa or identification of the body? Just say that identification of the sense organs is enough for adhyasa. Then Bhashyakara answers that question, Nachaiti says here, Nacha adhishthanamantarena indriyanam vyavahara sambhavati. Nacha adhishthanamantarena. Since indriya, sense organs, all of them have their adhishthanam in the body. So in the sense organs are located in the body. And therefore it is necessary to have identification with the body first in order to have identification with sense organs. Otherwise, you cannot directly have identification with the eyes, ears, unless you have first the identification with the body. That's the idea. Not adhisthanamantarena. Without the adhishthanam, without the locus, indriyanam vyavahara sambhavati. So, the vyavahara or transaction with reference to sense organs would not be possible unless there is an identification with the body. Therefore we said, dehendriyadishu aham bhava. Says Ratnapura, indriyanam adhishtanam ashraya shariram ityartha. So, adhishtanam tathakarta karanam cha pratagvidham vividasya pratakcheshtaha daivam sevatra panchamam shariravaং manoviryat karyam prarabhate narah nyayam va viparidam va panchayate tasya karanam panchayate tasya hetavah. So this adhishthana, karta, karanam, chesta and daivam, these five are required for any karya to be possible actually. So body is required, sense organs are required, chesta is required, then all vyavahara is there. Karta, pramada is required. So pramada is required, body is required, sense organs are required, pressing the sense organs into service also is required, and of course the grace of God is required, because otherwise you can't press into service. I may want to press my arm into service, I cannot, if I don't have the grace. So daivam seva. So Bhagavad Gita says this very same thing. Adhishtanam, tatha karta means pramada. Adhishtanam is body. Karanam meaning the eyes, etc., organs of perception, organs of action. Vividasya prathak cheshtaha. Then there must be chesta of this karana. Eyes may be there, but then if I don't have chesta of unminam, nivinam, etc., then it doesn't work. And then daivam, the one, the Lord, whose grace is required for all this functioning. Then alone any vyavahara, whether it is sharira vang manoviryat, so whether it is by body, by the speech, or the mind, any kind of an action that is initiated by this person, whether it is right or wrong action, it requires these five factors. Says Purnanandiya in the line 6 from the bottom, Deha Rupa Dharmyadhyasamantarahi Indriyad Rupa Dharmadhyasa na sambhavati. So Deha is considered to be Dharmi, Indriyani or sense organs are considered to be Dharma tentatively. Inasmuch as Dharma is located in Dharmi, Indriyas are located in body, that's how the relationship is. It is not the sense organs are the attributes of the body, but then a dharma or the attribute always that is locus in a dharmi, in a substance. And so also sense organs have the locus in the body. That is how tentatively it is said to be with the body there is dharmadhyasa, with the sense organs there is, with body there is dharmyadhyasa, with sense organs dharmadhyasa. And the dharmadhyasa is not possible unless dharmyadhyasa is. Deha rupa dharmyadhyasamantarahi indriyadi rupa dharmadhyasa na sambhavati. Dharmadhyasa angikaranīya iti, dharmyadhyasa angikaranīya iti, pariharam abhipretya dharminam spurati indriyanam iti. Okay. Then further, says Ratnaprabha, Nanu astu atmana sanyuktam shariram. There's a very beautiful thought process going on here. You not understand the mechanism of how the vyavahara goes on. We don't think about these things. But here is the mechanism of how this vyavahara goes on. The hearing, seeing, thinking, talking, walking. What all is involved in this vyavahara to go on. So that process is being thought here to show how ignorance is involved. We miss this. We missed it because we are so preoccupied with vyavahara as such that we miss the very cause of vyavahara. And that's the reason why it is necessary to pay attention to the details here. That's why they are paying attention to every detail involved in a particular vyavahara. Nanu astu atmana sanyuktam shariram tesham ashrayah kim adhyasena. So why is it alright? We say that the adhyasa, identification with sense organs, cannot take place unless there is this identification with the body. Okay. But why do you say that this Devadatta has the adhyasa with the body? Body actually belongs to Devadatta. Why don't you say that? Nanu astu atmana sanyuktam shariram. What is the relationship between Atma and Sharira? Now this is a question. Is there a sanyog or samavaya or some kind of a relationship between them naturally existing? Or that Atma is only adhyasa with the body? Some people may think that body, Atma is invariably associated with the body. And therefore, adhyasa is not necessary. That the body is there and Atma is connected with the body. Suppose you say that, then why is it necessary for you to say that there is adhyasa with the body? Adhyasa means superimposition. Abhimana. It's not that there is abhimana with the body, actually this fellow is body. Therefore the body is associated with Atma. And therefore there is no adhyasa. In fact, Atma is associated with the body in some way or the other, either connected with it, or part and parcel of it, or inherently associated with it. Like the clay and the pot, there is what they call samavaya sambandha, an invariable relationship. That without the clay the pot cannot exist. So that kind of a relationship can be there between the body and the Atma. Or there can be like the pot can be tied with a rope. That's called a sanyoga. So maybe Atma is associated with the body in something like that. Why not Atma be associated with the body in a manner other than adhyasa? In that case, it is not necessary for you to say that there is adhyasa with the body. It says, Nanu astu atmana sanyuktam shariram. Shariram tesham meaning indriyanam ashrayah. Kim adhyasana? What's the need for you to insist that there is adhyasa or accept this additional factor adhyasa? This question here is explained by Puranandya Nanu iti. Achetana indriyadehe vyavahara chetana sambandham antarana sambhavati rasadehe vyavahara eva atah chetana sambandha vachyah. Alright? Since indriyani etc. sense organs are achetana, and this inert sense organs cannot come into functioning unless some chetana adhisthata is there. So we would accept that yes, Atma is chetana adhisthata, he must have this relationship, sambandha with indriyani. We have to accept that sambandha. Chetana sambandha vachyah, meaning that sambandha of the sense organs with chetana or a conscious being has to be accepted, because without that the sense organs cannot come into functioning. Vachyah. Indriyadestu swashraya sharira dvara parampara sambandhena chetanat sambandha sattvat vyavaharopattehe kim dharmi adhyasayaniti shankituhu abhiprayah. Why do you say there is adhyasa? We say that yes, sense organs are somehow made sentient because of association with Atma. And we also accept that the sense organs gain their sentiency through the body. So first the body gains the sentiency because of the association with Atma, and then the sense organs gain the sentiency and then they come into operation. But that the body gains sentiency is because of what? We say that because body is directly associated or connected with Atma and therefore it is conscious, and not because there is adhyasa relationship between body and Atma. It says, Indriyadestu swashraya shariradvara parampara sambandhena chetanatma sambandha sattvat. Atma is chetana. And we say that Indriyas are connected with the Atma through the body, through the link of the body. Sattvat vyavahara upvattehe. And so we say that body is directly connected with Atma and sense organs are connected with the body, and that is how sense organs gain their sentiency. Kim dharmi adhyasena? What's the need for you to say that there is dharmi adhyasa or identification with the body? That there is adhyasa. We say that the body is connected with the Atma. It is Shankituhu abhipraya. This is abhipraya. What is the answer he gives here? Atma sharirayoho sanyoga sambhavati chet tada atma sanyukta sharira sambandhitvena indriyadehe atma sambandha vaktum yujyeta. Had it been possible that there is a relationship or connection between the Atma and the body, then what we say would have been okay. Atma sharirayoho sanyoga sambhavati chet. If sanyoga meaning connection or association of the Atma and Sharira had it been possible, tada then Atma sanyukta Sharira sambandhitvena indriyadehe Atma sambandha vaktum yujyeta. Then you could have said that the sense organs are also associated with the Atma through the link of the body, had the body been connected with the Atma in the first place. Saevana sambhavati, but body cannot have any kind of a link or relation or association in the body with the Atma. Purusha prakrutistho hi bhungte prakrutijan gunan. Prakrutistha means what? Identified with the Prakriti, and then alone the Purusha is able to experience the gunas of Prakriti. Iti ashayam sputi. This is ashaya contained in Bhashyakara statement. So Bhashyakara says nacha iti. Nacha anadhyasta atmabhavena dehena kaschid vyapriyate. Nacha anadhyasta atmabhavena dehena. What is anadhyasta atmabhava? Meaning atma tadatmyam yasmin tena ityartha. So with the deha, atma cannot have a relationship other than adhyasa. Because Atma is Asangaha, and therefore it is not. Sun, for example, what sort of relationship can it have with the water in the bucket? Only of the nature of Adhyasa. The sun gets reflected, and that is all. There is only a feeling on our part, or a notion on our part that sun has entered the water. There is no way that sun can enter the water unless through the medium of pratibimba or reflection. A real entry is not possible, and similarly also, there is no way that the Atma can be associated with the body unless there is a link of this adhyasa. So, anadhyastha atmabhava meaning atma tadatmyam, nacha anadhyastha atmabhavena dehena. Unless there is atmabhava in the deha through the adhyasa, na kaschid vyapriyade. Otherwise, no vyapara is possible unless there is adhyasa with the deha. Just as in Sushupti, there is no identification of Deha, then there is no Vyavahara. If Deha were always connected with the body, Atma, then in Sushupti you will be aware of Deha. Because you cannot give up your own awareness. Atma being self-effulgent, you will always be aware of it. If the Deha also were Atma or connected with the Atma invariably, in that case, in Sushupti also there will be knowledge of the connection with the Deha and connect with the sense organs, etc. The fact that you are completely able to withdraw shows that primary relationship is not there. If that relationship was invariable connection, you can never totally deny it. I cannot in any way deny my relationship with my hands and legs because they are connected with the body. And similarly, if the body were connected with the Atma, there is no way that I can forget the body, because whenever there is awareness of Atma, there will be awareness of these things. But that's not the case. That shows that body and Atma do not have any inherent relationship. It's a relationship of the nature of adhyasa, superimposition. Says Ratnaprabha, asangohi iti shrutehe adhyasika eva dehatmanoho sambandha na sanyogadhi iti bhavaha. That sanyoga, samavaya, this kind of relationship that the Nayayikas imagined, they are not there between Atma and Deha. The only relationship is of the nature of adhyasa, superimposition. Then says further, Ratnavandanu Atmanah Dehadivihi Adhyasika Sambandhopi Mastu Swatas Chetanataya Pramatratva Upatehe. Further question. And very important question. Nanu atmanah dehadivihi adhyasik sambandho vimastu. We say that let there not be any kind of relationship of Atma with the body and the sense organs. Atma, why? Swatah chetanataya pramatritva upapattehe. Atma himself is what? Swatah chetanah. Atma himself is conscious being. And on account of his being a conscious entity, Atma himself can be a knower. Why is it necessary for you to say that for a pramata or knower to be there, that Atma must have a relationship with the body and sense organs? Why does Atma require the medium of body and sense organs to know things? Atma, being of the nature of consciousness, can directly know things. It will make sense. Atma, being of the nature of consciousness, would not require the help of any agencies such as body and sense organs to know. Why would it not know things directly? Meaning, whenever knowledge takes place of the Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, you would say that Atma directly knows them because he is conscious entity and then he is Pramata, the knower. What's the need for you to say that Atma must have the adhyasa with the body and sense organs and then alone Pramatratvam is possible? Nanu Atmanah dehadivihi adhyasika sambandhopi mastu. Let Atma not have even the sambandha of, even if you say that there is no sanyoga samavaya, we say there is no adhyasa also. Let there be no adhyasa of the Atma with the body or the sense organs because Atma is qualified or competent to be pramada on his own without having to resort to the need for body and the sense organs. Why not that way? Then we would say that if Atma himself were pramata, because he is conscious being, then all the time he should keep on knowing because Atma is conscious and in the sleep also he is conscious. In the sleep also knowledge should take place. That's what we would say. If they don't say that. Who says Purupakshi? Nacha sushuptau paramatratva anupatti. Purupakshi tells us, when we say that if you accept Atma as Pramata directly, which is what the Naiyayikas think, Atma has all these dharma. If you say that Atma is knower by himself, in that case we would say that in deep sleep also, since Atma is awake or shining, therefore the knowledge must take place. He says no. Atma is knower all right, but nacha sushupto pramatratva apatti karano pramadhi bhava iti. That Atma is pramada all right, but still he requires karana, namely sense organs. Adhyasa is not required, but the karanas or sense organs are required. In deep sleep, the organs of perception not being there, therefore there is no pramatratva of Atma in the deep sleep. Had they been there, he would have been pramata. So we say that Atma himself is pramata without the need for the adhyasika sambandha with body and sense organs. Why not that way? Then Vashyakara answers that Nacha etasmin sarvasmin asate asangasya atmanah pramatratvam upapadyate. Nacha etasmin sarvasmin asate. Only when all of these factors are not there, if they are not there, meaning the adhyas, dharmi adhyas with the body, dharma adhyas with the sense organs, and bringing all these things into operation, if all of these were not there, then pramatratvam na upapadyate. The knowership cannot be unless all these conditions are satisfied. Ratna Prabhu explains this. Pramashrayatvam hi pramatratvam. Who is pramata? Prama ashraya hai. What is prama? Knowledge. The valid knowledge is called prama. So when we bring into operation the praman such as eyes, and you know this flower, then the flower is there, then knowledge takes place that this is a flower. Or this is red color, because eyes will only know the color, they don't know the flower. But the color has its root in, its locus in the flower. So that is how we somehow come to know the flower. Basically, eyes know what? The color. And they know the form also. And the certain form is called flower by us. But then, that this is red color or that this is this particular flower, this is called Praman. When does it take place? When I, the Praman is there, the flower, the Prameya is there, and I, the Pramata is there. When all these three fellows are there, then the fourth thing, namely Prama, takes place. So who is Pramata, the knower? Knower is the locus of knowledge. Prama ashrayatvam hi pramatratvam. The Pramata, the knower, is the ashraya, the very locus of the Prama, or the knowledge. Now what is this knowledge? What is Prama? When you say knowledge of flower, what exactly is that? Pramayadi nitya chinmatram tarhi ashrayatva ayogah karanavayyarthyam cha. So this knowledge of flower, is it pure consciousness? Pramayadi nitya chinmatram. If Prama or knowledge means pure consciousness alone, that vritti is not required. Pure consciousness alone is knowledge. In that case, ashrayatva ayogaha. Atma himself being of the nature of pure consciousness cannot be ashraya of pure consciousness. Understand? Atma is of the nature of pure consciousness. Therefore, you cannot call Atma the ashraya of pure consciousness. So this Atma cannot have this ashrayatva ayogaha. The Atma cannot become ashraya of the Prama. If Prama means pure consciousness. Karana vayyarthyam cha. At the same time, Atma being of the nature of pure consciousness and knowledge also being of the nature of pure consciousness, you do not require the sense organs, etc. because knowledge also is the nature of pure consciousness. So, karana vayyarthyam, the sense organs would have been redundant. So, Brahma knowledge is pure consciousness, you cannot say. This is vritti matram. If you say that knowledge is merely vritti or a thought of the nature of flower, jagadandhya prasangaha, a vritti is jada, inert, an inert vritti cannot illuminate this flower. So you never know the flower. If knowledge, by knowledge you meant only vritti, meaning a thought of the nature of the object, that vritti being inert cannot illuminate the object, so no object will be illuminated by you, and jagadandhya prasangaha, one would not know anything. Vrittehe jadatvad, because vritti is jada. Ataha vrittidho bodha prama. So this is Vedanta. Vrittidho bodha prama. What is prama, the knowledge? Vrittidha bodha. See, now in the fifth line, Purnanandya says, Pramanama vritti sambandharahita chidrupava chit sambandharahita vrittirva ahosvit vishishtava. Three questions are there. Pramana, what do you mean by Prama? Vritti sambandharahita chidrupa, meaning pure consciousness devoid of any association with vritti, is that what you mean by Prama? Chit sambandharahita vrittirva, or merely vritti without any association with consciousness, that's what you mean? Ahosvit vishishtava, or by Prama you mean that vritti or the thought form associated with consciousness. So what do you mean by Prama? Iti vikalpya prasamadvitiyo nirasya. So the first two conditions, that Prama or knowledge cannot be said to be pure consciousness or merely vritti. Dhrutiyam angikaroti. We say that Prama or the knowledge is vritti associated with consciousness, or consciousness reflected in the vritti, or vritti reflecting consciousness. Whichever way. Sometimes we say consciousness is Prama, consciousness reflected in the vritti is Prama. Some people say no, vritti is Prama, vritti reflecting consciousness is Prama. In any case, the vritti means the thought form and the consciousness, both of them must be there. Like the taptaya pinda, like the iron and fire, that association must be there. Then alone, because iron itself is black and cold, so it cannot be hot, and fire itself doesn't have a form, therefore it cannot be round. So when you have a round fire, that means that the two factors must be there, the iron and fire. And similarly also, the vritti must be there, and the consciousness must pervade that, and then alone the final form is, it has both jadatvam and chetanatvam. Since it has jadatvam, it can assume the form of an object, which chetana itself cannot assume. And since there is chetanam, it can illuminate the object, which jada cannot do. So in as much as chetana being pure consciousness cannot assume any form, it cannot illuminate the object. And as much as jada vritti can assume the form, but it is jada, therefore cannot illuminate the object. Therefore, the knowledge must have both these elements, that it must have the form of the object as well as illumining the object. Illumination can only take place by consciousness. The form can only be assumed by the vritti. Therefore, vrittidho bodha. He explains that. Iddha means what? Vritti abhivyakta, vrittidha ityartha. Consciousness reflected in the vritti, or vritti reflecting the consciousness. This is what we call pramana. Then Ratna Brahma says, Tad ashrayatvam asangasya atmanah vrittiman manasthadatma adhyasam vina na sambhavati bhavaha. Now, when can Atma become the ashraya of this Prama? Who is Pramada? We say that there is Pramada. Devdatta is Pramada. Or we say Atma is Pramada. Who is Pramada? Pramada is Prama Ashraya. The very locus of Prama. What is Prama? Vritti Abhivyakta Chaitanyam or Vrittidha Bodha. So only when Atma can become the Ashraya of Prama of this nature, then it can become Pramada. When can Atma become the Ashraya of this Prama? Only when Atma is identification with the Vritti. And what is Vritti? Nothing but the mind. So only when Atma is identification with the mind, that Atma can become the Pramada. Otherwise it cannot become Pramada. So tad ashrayatvam, prama ashrayatvam, asangasya atmanah na sambhavati. Asanga Atma cannot become the ashraya or the basis or locus of such a prama because it is asanga. Vrittiman manasthadatma adhyasam vina. Only when there is an identification of the mind. And what is manaha? Vrittiman manaha. Vrittimat manaha. Manaha is that which is possessed of the vritti or consisting of vrittis. And so, unless there is identification with the mind which possesses the vrittis or which consists of vrittis, the Atma cannot become the ashraya of prama of this nature, which is what? Vrittidha bodha. Iti bhavaha. Says Purnanandya, vrittimataha manasaha yat tadatmyam satta aikya rupam tasya adhyasam vina ityarthaha. Vrittimataha manasaha yat tadatmyam, meaning with the mind there must be satta aikyam, Atma and mind, there must be a mutual identification, and then only Atma can become pramada, otherwise he cannot become pramada. Vrittiruva visheshanam shesha adhyasa dharmi adhyasam vina na sambhavati tasāja dharmi adhyasa bhavena ubhayatra dharma adhyasa bhave vritti vishishta bodharuva pramanasayatvam na iti phaitartha. Vritti is a visheshana or ansh of the manaha. And so first there must be adhyasa with dharmi, namely manaha, then there is adhyasa with the vritti which is dharma. So vrittiruva visheshanam shesha adhyasa dharmi adhyasa vina na sambhavati tasāja dharmi adhyasa bhavena ubhayatra dharma adhyasa bhave vritti vishishta bodharupa pramanasayatvam na iti phaitartha. Atma cannot become the ashraya of the prama which of the nature of vritti vishishta bodha. The pramata he cannot be unless there is an identification with the mind. If prama were pure consciousness, then Atma need not become ashraya. And if prama were just purely vritti, there would be no knowledge at all. Since there is knowledge and since there is modification, therefore the vritti vishishta chaitanya is the prama. And therefore, in order for chaitanya to become vritti vishishta, since chaitanya is asanga, that vishishta cannot come unless there is adhyasa. So since chaitanya is asanga, that vritti vishishtatvam meaning of the nature of vritti upahitatvam. So that vishishtata of the vritti is of the nature of adhyasa. So unless the Atma has adhyasa with the mind, and through that mind with that vritti, then otherwise Atma cannot become the pramata. Meaning I cannot become the knower unless I am identified with my mind. And so knower also represents what? Identification of Atma with the mind. एतस्मिन् सर्वस्मिन् असतीति भाष्यस्य मनस्तादात्म्यादि अध्यास अभाव रूप तात्पर्यास उक्तः संप्रति शब्दोक्तार्थमः देहादीति. So एतस्मिन् सर्वस्मिन् असति, meaning when all of this is absent. And what is एतस्मिन् सर्वस्मिन्? मनस्तादात्म्यादि अध्यास. Unless tadatmya or identification of the mind etc. is there, this adhyasa, this pramatrutam is not possible. This is what the Ratna Prabhakara first explained as the meaning of that sentence. And then Shabda, Shabdoktasamaha, says Ratna Prabha, देहाध्यासे तद्धर्म अध्यासे च सति इति अक्षरार्थः. Then so देहाध्यासः, मन अध्यासः, then वृत्ति अध्यासः, and then alone prama ashrayatvam is possible. तदहि आत्मनः प्रमातृत्वं मास्तु. If you say that Atma cannot become pramata unless he has identification in the body and the mind, we say that Atma doesn't have pramatrutvam. Atma, there is no knowership at all. Why don't you say that? There is no knower at all. Or let pramata not be required. Let us say that we say that pramata is not required and still pramana prameya vyavahara takes place. Why not that way? What is the need for accepting all these factors? For pramana prameya vyavahara, you accept the need for pramanam, means of knowledge. You accept the need for adhishthanam, body. You accept the need for identification of the body. Then alone there is pramada. We say the pramada is not required. Why not indriyas perform the vyavahara themselves? Says tahi atmanah pramatrutvam mastu. So you justify everything. Otherwise they will catch hold of you. So why do you add this factor? Then Bhashyakara says, nacha iti. Nacha pramatrutvamantarena pramana pravrittihi asti. He says no. Nacha pramatrutvamantarena. Unless pramata is there, pramana pravrittihi nasti. Pramana meaning the eyes, ears, etc. They are all jada. And these jada things cannot come into function unless there is a conscious being. That conscious being cannot be pure Atma because it cannot be connected to the sense organs. It cannot be pure mind because it is inert. And therefore it must be what? Deha Vishishta Atma or Mano Vishishta Atma. So Pramata must be Mano Vishishta Atma, meaning Atma having identification with the mind. If that is not there, this Vyavahara would not be possible. So, तस्मात् आत्मनः प्रमातृत्वादि व्यवहारार्थम अध्यास अंगीकर्तव्य है. इति अनुमान अर्थापत्योः फलोपसंहरति. Never, all this pramana is shown. तस्मात् therefore आत्मनः प्रमातृत्वादि व्यवहारार्थम. That Atma is doing all this vyavahara of the nature of pramata, Shrota, Anumata, Drashta, etc. All these vyavahara that Atma can perform, that requires adhyasa. Adhyasa angikartavya hai. Anatma is jada, therefore cannot perform vyavahara. Atma is asanga, therefore also cannot perform vyavahara. So for vyavahara to be performed, there must be some kind of a relationship. The unholy wedlock between what? Atma and Anatma must be there. That is what? That is the nature of adhyasa. And therefore, you have to accept adhyasa when you find vyavahara there. तस्मात् आत्मनः प्रमातृत्वादि व्यवहारार्थम. For Atma, that it has प्रमातृत्वादि व्यवहार, प्रमातृता अध्यास अंगीकर्तव्य है. We have to accept the adhyasa. इति अनुमान अर्थापत्योः फलम उपसंहारति. So since vyavahara is there, adhyasa must be there. Without adhyasa, vyavahara cannot be. Is arthapatti. Wherever adhyasa vyavahara is there, adhyasa is there. When adhyasa is not, vyavahara is not. There is anumanam. So, phalam upasamharati. So, with this pramanam is provided that there is adhyasa. And what is phalam? Says Bhashyakara tasmad. Tasmad avidyavat vishayani eva pratyakshadini pramanani shastrani cha. Tasmad, therefore, avidyavat vishayani eva. Pratyakshadini pramanani. All this pratyaksha etc. the pramana prameya vyavahara that takes place must have their ashraya in an avidyavat purusha, means adhyasavan purusha, such as Devadatta. And shastrani cha. Even shastras also cannot address pure Atma, nor can shastra address Anatma. Shastra only can address Devadatta, who is also adhyasavan purusha. So, when you find transactions, adhyasavan purusha is behind that. And when you find Shastra addressing themselves, Adhyasavan Purusha is there. And so, Pratyakshadini Pramanani, Shastrani cha, Avidyavat Vishayani eva. What tasmat tasmat? Pramana sattva. Tasmad means since pramana, meaning anumana arthavatti pramana is there, therefore we say that avidyavad vishyani eva shastrani pramanani. Yadva pramana prashnam samadhaya akshepam pariharti. There are two questions here. How do you say that all the pramana prameya vyavahara has behind them this adhyasavan purusha? And secondly, if adhyasavan purusha is behind them, how can you say that this pramana is a valid pramana? Tasmad, that next explanation we will see tomorrow. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Omkarasya Shabdasya Bhavetau Brahmana Pura Kantham Vitva Vinayatau Tasmad Mangalikau Bhau. Om Nata Om Nata. विषयिणोः प्रकाशवद्विरुद्धस्वभावयोः इतरेतरभावानुपपत्तौ सिद्धायाम् तद्धर्माणामपि सुतराम् इतरेतरभावानुपपत्तिः इत्यतः अस्मत्प्रत्ययगोचरे विषयिणी चिदात्मके युष्मत्प्रत्ययगोचरस्य विषयस्य तद्धर्माणाञ्च विषये अध्यासः मिथ्येति भवितुं युक्तम् न च एतस्मिन् सर्वस्मिन् सति असङ्गस्यात्मनः प्रमातृत्वमुपद्यते न च प्रमातृत्वमन्तरेण प्रमाणप्रवृत्तिरस्ति तस्मात् अविद्यावद्विषयाण्येव प्रत्यक्षादीनि प्रमाणानि शास्त्राणि च. It is shown here how this adhyasa is a matter of experience as well as something that can be known by what we call arthapatti as well as anumanam. Everyone knows there is pramada, drashta, shrota, manta. So this is a matter of direct experience, meaning this adhyasa, pramada, is sakshi bhasya. Also by the pramanam called arthapatti, meaning presumption, we can see how the organs of perception as well as mind, which is what we call the pramanam, the valid means of knowledge, for the respective objects, they being jada inert, they cannot come into functioning unless they are presided over by a conscious entity, and that is how the functioning of this inert pramanam establishes the existence of a conscious entity called the pramata. This is the arthapatti pramanam. Anyatha anupatti. This achetana pravritti cannot be unless a chetana adhisthata is. And finally what we call the anumanam, where there is a concurrence. That is what we call the anvaya vyatareka anusaritvam. That vyavahara is only when the adhyasa is, as in the waking and the dream, and vyavahara is not when the adhyasa is not, as in the deep sleep, and that is how adhyasa is proven to be the cause of the moolam for the vyavahara. So this is how it is shown, how vyavahara is. Wherever vyavahara is, adhyasa must be there. Without adhyasa, vyavahara cannot take place. And therefore, Even all this pramana, prameya, vyavahara, pratyaksha, anumanam, arthapatti, whatever vyavahara takes place by which we gain knowledge. So all these transactions invariably call for a pramada, a knower, which is nothing but adhyasa, or a product of adhyasa or adhyasa. Because Atma cannot be pramada, Atma cannot be knower, nor anatma can be a knower. And therefore we have an entity called pramada. And he is a combination of Atma and Anatma. Like the Atma reflected in the Anatma. And this or Atma conditioned by Anatma. So Antahkarana Pratibimba Chaitanyam, Pratibimbita Chaitanyam, or Antahkarana Avachinna Chaitanyam, however we call it, that is called Pramata. And such an entity has to be accepted to explain samsara, to explain vyavahara. Because samsara could not have been, or vyavahara could not have been, this jagat would not have been, had such an entity called pramada, or this individual self had not been, the jivatma had not been. Okay, then tasmad avidyavad vishyani eva pramanani pratyakshami pramanani shastrani cha. Thus it is proven. Even the Shastras also address themselves to a pramada, who is an ignorant person, meaning adhyasavan purusha. And all this pratyaksha anumana, this vyavahara also is carried out by the one who is adhyasavan purusha. This is shown here. The next question was, is this pratyaksha pramana, all of them have their basis in this pramata, who is possessed with the dosha of adhyasa. Because adhyasa, avidya is dosha. Adhyasa also being product of vidya is a dosha. And pramada is adhyasavan purusha. When pramada, who is thus a dushita, meaning adhyasa dushita person, even he is the basis for all this vyavahara, how can you say that this pratyaksha, anumana, all of them are valid? That the perception produces valid knowledge. How can you say? When the very person who is the basis of this pratyaksha, he himself is a product of ignorance. So normally wherever there is any defect in pramana, such as cataract or whatever, then whatever knowledge is produced by that pramana, that means of knowledge, is Brahma and not pramana. Brahma means valid knowledge which cannot be negated or falsified. Brahma is that which is subject to falsification. So Indriyades, no, this was see, yada purusha adhyasatmaka dosha yuktah, tada chakshuradikamaphi adhyasatmaka dosha yuktam. So when this pramata also is the one who is dosha yuktah, when possessed with dosha of the nature of adhyasa, then indriyani, which are all based on this pramata, or which can come into functioning only when the pramata is there, they are also possessed with dosha of the nature of adhyasa. Tatha chayad dushtakaranajanjam jnanam tad brahmahiti niyama. The rule is that the knowledge that is produced by a dushtakarana, meaning a karana or the means of knowledge which is defective, then that knowledge is called brahma and not pramana. Yatha pitaha shankha iti jnanam. Just as when I am suffering from jaundice, when my eyes are yellow, then I think I see a white conch also as a yellow conch. That knowledge is Brahma, a delusion and not Pramana. Evam jatani chakshuradini sarvada brahmajanakani eva svihu. In which case, all these pramanas, chakshu, etc., we would say that they only generate Brahma and not Pramana. And so whatever knowledge we gain, it will have to be categorized as Brahma and not Pramana. Na pramajanakani, that they don't produce valid knowledge. Iti avidyavad vishayani tani katham pramanani syuhu. Iti pramanya akshepaha. So all these eyes, etc., which are the means of knowledge which we employ for all our vyavahara, how can you say that they produce valid knowledge? And this is pramanya akshepa. This is the questioning of the pramanyam or validity of this pramana, the means of knowledge. Now that is being answered, or that answer also is seen as contained in Bhashyakara's discussion. It says on page 57, in the third line from the bottom, yadva pramana prashnam samadhaya akshepam parihari. What is tasmat? Tasmat, therefore. Yadva pramana prashnam samadhaya. Or how Katham pramanani avidyavad vishayani syuhu. How can pramanas be? How can you say that this pramana, meaning eyes, etc., that all of them have their vishaya or ashraya in a adhyasavan purusha? How can you say that has been shown? Unless there is a pramata, there cannot be any pramana prameya vyavahara. And who is this pramada? Atma cannot be pramada. He is pure consciousness. He cannot become the ashraya of pure consciousness. Nor this pramada can be anatma because jagat andhya prasangat. And so pramada is a product of atma and anatma. How can you have that product? Are you trying to tell us that this anatma in the body is associated or connected with atma? Says no, there is only relationship that can exist between atma and anatma is only adhyasika sambandha. Not the other kind of sambandha. There cannot be an inherent or any natural connection between them, only adhyasika sambandha. Only when the atma has his aham bhava in the body or his upadhi, then alone that is the only nature of relationship that is possible. And so pramata is a product of adhyasa and not a product of some kind of a sambandha or samavaya or sanyoga. And that is how we have shown that adhyasa has to be there for this pramana prameya vyavahara to take place. And still, the knowledge generated by the pramanas is not Brahma, but it is Brahma. How can it be? Now that's what is being answered here. Tasmat avidyavad vishayani eva pratyakshadini pramanani shastrani chaiti. Now that is being explained here by the Tikagara. Ratnava says, aham iti adhyasasya pramatra antargatatvena adoshatvat avidyavat ashrayani pramanani eva iti yojana. The idea is that the dosha is contained in the pramada and not in pramana. When we say that there is adhyasa dosha, where is that dosha situated? In the pramada, in the knower. And you cannot call it dosha also because that's the nature of the knower. See, what is the nature cannot be called dosha. Now let us come to vyavahara. In the vyavahara, now when we are transacting our business, all this pramana prameya vyavahara, who is transacting this particular vyavahara business? The pramata. Now who is pramata? Pramata is adhyasavan purusha. He is called pramata. Atma, who has identification of the body, and that is how the notion is generated that I am such and such, that sense of individuality or that jiva is called pramata. And it is not his defect that he is ignorant. Had ignorance not been there, he would not be in existence at all. As far as Atma is concerned, adhyasa is called dosha. Inasmuch as adhyasa conceives the true nature of the self, from the standpoint of Atma, adhyasa can be called dosha. But from the standpoint of pramada, adhyasa is not dosha, understand. It is not my dosha, it is not my fault that I am ignorant. Or that this adhyasa is required for conducting vyavahara is nobody's fault. No, there is anything wrong in it. The idea is when we say there is no fault, there is nothing wrong in it also. That there is adhyasa with the body and the mind, and then alone the vyavahara can be conducted, there is nothing wrong in it. It is not dosha. Then what is wrong? That I do not know it. If there is something wrong, that's all. That I do not know that this is adhyasa and not a reality. That can be called dosha. But that dosha is referred through what? Inasmuch as it conceals the true nature of myself. Therefore, that ignorance is called dosha with respect to Satchidananda Atma. But ignorance and adhyasa is not a dosha with reference to this pramada. Because without that, the pramada would not have been in existence in the first place. Therefore, we do not consider adhyasa as a dosha. We say that ignorance of adhyasa is samsara. Adhyasa also is not samsara. Avaranam alone is samsara. That's why there is no dosha. Otherwise pramada cannot be. And therefore, whatever proceeds from pramada also, yes, if there are doshas in the eyes, such as cataract, etc., then the knowledge produced by the eyes would be called Brahma, but otherwise it is not Brahma. So this is a very beautiful point that is brought out here. All of the discussion follows from the Panchapadika and Vivarana. So all the points that are being basically discussed, they have their origin in this sampradaya. So there is a prasthana, what we call Vivarana prasthana. Upon this Chathsutri of the Chathsutri Bhashya of Shankaracharya, his direct disciple Padmapadacharya wrote a text called Panchapadika. And on that, wrote a tika called Panchapadika. On that another tika was written called Vivarana. And that has become a sort of a guiding element in this Vedantic tradition. And so the different views presented in the Vivarana, they become sort of for us the Sampradaya. And Ratna Prabhakara here brings out all these points which were brought up by the Vivaranakara. So he looks upon the sentences this way, therefore Ratna Prabhakara also gives all these different aspects of it. Says ahamiti adhyasasya pramatra antargatatvena. Since aham adhyasa, aham means the sense of individuality, that's adhyasa. Pramatra antargatatvena, since that is inherent in the pramata, it is contained in the very pramata, in the very constitution of pramata, that adhyasa is part and parcel. Adoshatva, therefore it is not a dosha as far as pramata is concerned. As far as Atma is concerned, it can be called dosha. As far as pramata is concerned, it is not dosha. Avidyavat ashrayani api pramanani eva yojana, and therefore even though this pramana such as pratyaksha etc. have their ashraya in this pramata, who is an adhyasavan purusha, still this adhyasa is not a dosha with reference to pramata. There is no word. Therefore this pramana is also do not have any dosha in them. Dosha is that which is agantuka, and that which is inherent is not dosha. For example, eyes have certain limitations, that they can only perceive within a certain range of light. They cannot perceive light below a certain frequency and above a certain frequency. That's not a dosha. That's the nature of eyes. But in the range of frequency of the band that the eyes see, if there is some problem, then that is what we would call dosha. The ears also cannot hear sounds of certain frequencies and wavelengths. That's not a dosha. That's inherent nature of the ears. That it is a limitation, inherent limitation. But within the range of frequency and wavelength that the ears are supposed to hear, then there is a problem, then we would call it dosha. No doctor will say that your ears are defective because you cannot hear some radio Ceylon directly. Because that kind of wavelengths and our ears are not designed for that. So if you cannot hear, that is not dosha. But ears are designed for some functioning, and if that also you cannot hear, then it will be called dosha. Understand what is called dosha, Very often we condemn ourselves for no reason at all. And we condemn others also for no reason at all. Because it is something inherent. What can you do? And therefore, there is no condemnation, really speaking. And how can you condemn somebody for agantuka dosha? Because it's not natural anyway. Suppose eyes are suffering from cataract, there is no eyes problem. So therefore also you cannot condemn. And if eyes have limitation in seeing, therefore we cannot condemn. So actually speaking, when understanding, there is no reason to blame or condemn anything. That's how a wise man is free from this kind of problems. Wise or any alert person for that matter. You don't require a wisdom of Atma and Atma also. Even Vyavaharic wisdom is adequate, provided we can hold on to that wisdom. Unfortunately, wisdom does not come into play in our Vyavahara, because we get so excited, etc. But if we do not get excited, then even this Vyavaharic wisdom is quite adequate to keep us happy people. To be enlightened, these things are required. To be happy, not much is required. Says Ratna Bhavakara, Sati pramatari should be paschad bhavan dosha, paschad bhavan dosha iti uchyate. So pramata, once he is there, then paschad bhavan, whatever comes later on, that will be called dosha. If this fellow is angry, if there is krodha, kama, etc., that will be called dosha of the pramata, if you want to call it. But then I am a pramata, and then there is adhyasa, is called sahaja tadatmya. Dhruv Viveka discussed three kinds of tadatmya. Sahaja tadatmya, bhantijam tadatmyam, karmajam tadatmyam. there is a sahaja tadatmya. That where the upadhi is there the reflection of consciousness will be, and therefore, that some kind of aham mama bhava will be there. Why is when we know this aham mama bhava is a product of ignorance, and the otherwise man does not know. That's the only difference. Other aham mama bhava is there where upadhi is going to be. Now look at Purnananda in the very last line of the page 57. Nanu chaitanya advitiya avabhasam prati pramatru antargatasya avidyadhyasasya doshatvena prasiddhatvat katham doshatvam. Everybody knows that ignorance, avidya is a dosha, and adhyasa is also a dosha. How? Chaitanya advitiya avabhasam prati. In as much as this avidya and the adhyasa, it actually veils the advitiyatva of Chaitanya. That's definitely what it does. Moment I have this aham buddhi in the body or this in the upadhi, then a sense of individuality is created. Immediately the Atma is as though confined to this upadhi. And thus Atma becomes many, because when as many upadhis are there, as many Atmas are there, as though, because there is this aham bhava or identification with the Atma. And therefore, that adhyasa in fact deprives me of the knowledge of advitiyatvam or non-duality of Atma. That's a fact. Had this adhyasa not been there, I would not have been deprived of the knowledge of my true nature. But what deprives me is this adhyasa. And therefore, Chaitanya advitiya avabhasam prati. When it comes to avabhasam of the knowledge of the advitiyatvam, the non-duality of Chaitanya, of myself, Paramatru antargatasya avidyadhyasasya doshatvena prasiddhatvat. That avidyadhyasa or adhyasa of the name, avidya of the nature of adhyasa, which is inherent in this pramata, is a dosha in as much as it deprives me of the knowledge of advitiyatvam of the self. Therefore it is dosha. Kasam dosha. Still, how do we say that adhyasa is a dosha? Adhyasasya kasam adoshatvam. How can you say that adhyasa is not a dosha, even though it deprives me of the nature, knowledge of myself? And it says, therefore it is sati pramatari. Now explains this. Yatha chakshurnishta kacha kamaladihi paschad bhavan dosha tatha avidyadu pramatru antargatatvat na dosha ityanvayah. We have to read this Ratna Prabha. He said here, Sati Pramadari Paschad Bhavan Dosha Paschad Bhavan Dosha iti uchyate. When Pramada is there, then whatever comes later on can be called dosha. For example, when eyes are there, whatever comes later is called dosha. Yasa kachadihi. Like a cataract. So like cataract, so eyes are there, then there is no dosha there, but then whatever comes agantuka, whatever comes later on, incidental, like cataract, that would be called dosha. Isa kachadihi. Avidyatu, as we said. However, other limitations of eyes are not dosha. Avidyatu pramatru antargatatva na dosha. But avidya, which is inherent in pramada, is not a dosha. It's not paschad bhavan. It is what? Something that is inherent. Yena pratyak. Again, not pratyakshadina, pratyakshadina. There are so many little errors are there. Yena pratyakshadina apramanyam bhaveti bhavaha. And so you cannot say that pratyakshadi are not apramanani, because adhyasa is not a dosha that has come later. It is there in the first place. Otherwise, even the pramana vyavahara would not have been there, and the pramanas themselves would not have been. What's the need for eyes and ears? Atma doesn't require eyes and ears. Pashyati chakshuhu shrunoti karana. He hears everything without eyes. He sees everything without the eyes. Atma doesn't require eyes and ears. And eyes and ears do not require eyes and ears either. Who requires eyes and ears? This pramada. So very need of this pramanam, eyes and ears, is because of pramada. And therefore that's a natural setup. This is not a dosha. Then if there are any agantuka or incidental problems with eyes and ears, that alone will be called dosha. That's what Purnanandi explains. Yatha chakshurnistha kasha kamaladihi. Kamalam means this jaundice. So that yellowness in the eyes, or kasha means the cataract. Paschad bhavan dosha. That's what we call dosha. Tatha avidya na dosha. Tatha avidya tu paramatru antargatatva. However, avidya or adhyasa being living inherent in the pramata, therefore it is not called dosha. Purvasmad vaishamya dyojakah tu shabdah avidyatu. That is shows vaishamya. Says pramakarani bhute pramatari sadi paschad bhavan tat akarani bhuto yah sah dosha iti uchyate yatha kashadihi. Pramakarani bhute pramatari sati. Eyes can be called, so the one identified the eyes can be called pramada drashta. And pramakarani bhute pramatari sati. So the eyes are the reason cause for prama, generating valid knowledge with reference to the eyes, with reference to colors and forms. So when they are there in the first place, paschat bhavan, tat akarani bhutah. So whatever is required for the eyes to perceive cannot be called dosha. So whatever mechanism is there within, because of which the eyes are able to function, that cannot be called dosha, because without that the eyes cannot function. So whatever is called for the eyes to be there in the first place, and for the eyes to function, that cannot be called dosha. Because that is the svabhava of the eyes. Paschat bhavan tat akarani bhutaha. But when we have some other problems with the eyes, which are not necessary for seeing, so which are not necessary for eyes to perform the function of seeing, akarani bhutaha, like the cataract, like the jaundice, etc., which are not the causes for the eyes to see, they would be called dosha. Like a little speck of dirt would be called dosha because it is some foreign element not required for the eyes to perform the function. So anything that is required for the eyes to perform the function can be called dosha, but anything that is there which has no reason to be there for the eyes to perform the function would be called dosha. Akarani bhutayah saha dosha iti uchyate. No, this we should know for our own life. All these discussions should really clear up our thinking process. Somebody would say, what's the need for all this? There is a need, because our thinking is so confused. So, whether this particular aspect is necessary in Vyavahara or not. However, this whole process of thinking, how everything is analyzed, threadbare, and what is the process of understanding things, at least this discipline of the intellect will enable us to apply that very same discipline in other situations of life and enable us to be clear of things. So that is why, otherwise who is interested in this? Why do you think there are Vedantis who are interested in this? Everybody is interested only in Satchidananda Atma. But Satchidananda Atma can be known only in the intellect which has clarity. And this is how we generate the clarity. Lots of cobwebs are there, lots of confusions are there, all kinds of conclusions we have without thinking. So how to make the mind think in a proper manner, this is the process here. Yatha kachadihi pita pramam pati akaranatvat avidyatmaka adhyasastu pramatrantaragadaya pramam pati karanatvat na dosha ityartha. And so for seeing such as nila, pita, all these colors to see, you don't require cataract. Eyes are enough to see different colors such as yellow, etc. And so cataract, which is not required to see the colors, would be called dosha. However, avidya is required for pramada to be there, therefore it is not called dosha. Says etaduktam bhavati akaranattvena yah avatishtade saha dosha. Saha eva karanatvena avatishtade ched na dosho bhavati. Same thing can be dosha with reference to one point, may not be dosha with reference to another standpoint. A given thing which is karanam for something is not dosha, for with reference to something else which akaranam becomes dosha. Use an illustration here. Tasat avidya adhyasastu chaitanya advitiya avabhasam prati akaranatvad dosha. This avidya adhyasa, in as much as it is not required for chaitanya to shine, Chaitanya does not require, Advitiya Chaitanya does not require avidya and adhyasa to shine or to manifest itself. For therefore, with reference to manifestation of Advitiya Chaitanyam, avidya adhyasa is called dosha. However, not dvaita avabhasam prati. However, avidya adhyasa is required for dvaita avabhasa. Meaning this, the world of duality could not be perceived had this avidya adhyasa not been there. And therefore, with reference to perception of this dual world, avidya adhyasa is not a dosha. With reference to perception of the non-dual Atma, it's a dosha. So you must know that a given thing is dosha from one standpoint, not dosha from another standpoint. Tatra karanatvad tadyatha kachadhi akaranatvad chakshuradi dosho. A cataract, for example, can be called dosha because it is not required for the eyes to perform the normal function. Tathavida pāpa adrushtam anumapayan tatra karanatvat na dosha. Even cataract also is not a dosha from another standpoint. How? Says tathavida pāpa adrushtam anumapayan. When I am suffering from cataract or some kind of problem, that shows, so it is prarabdha hai. Why these problems come? Because of prarabdha. What do you mean prarabdha? Some kind of a durita must be there in my account, which I am exhausting by way of this cataract or some other problem. And so cataract also, in as much as it enables us to infer the existence of adrushta or durita of in my prarabdha, therefore it is not dosha with reference to that. In as much as it is not required for me to perform my normal function, it will be called dosha. In as much as it helps me to understand that there are duritas, etc., therefore it is not dosha. That's the reason why even dukkha also is not dosha. In as much as it enables us to understand and learn something. How to convert everything, the prasada buddhi is only this. How to convert everything into an experience of learning, And in that case, it's dosha from one standpoint, that I am suffering. There is a stomach ache and headache and all kinds of things are there, and in life also a lot of conflicts are there. And so, in as much as they are not required for my life, they are dosha. In as much as they teach me something about life, they are not dosha. And therefore, even all those unpleasant experiences also, if they are properly understood and employed in learning, then they also become what? Helpful means. Therefore, they are not dosha. These are the Vedantins convert the whole life into learning experience rather than experience of suffering. You can suffer or you can learn. Or you can learn while suffering. Suffering is because of durita. Therefore also it is not a dosha. Moment suffering is attributed to durita, it is no more a dosha because something is done in the past. What can be done? Therefore it is not a dosha. And then in as much as that suffering teaches something about life, therefore also it is not a dosha, it becomes guna actually. So, and this is how they say that even though avidya adhyasa is there in pramada, still this pramanani, as far as the dvaita avabhasa is concerned, this pratyaksha pramana, etc. are valid. As far as advaita avabhasa is concerned, they are all dushitas. But as far as dvaita avabhasa is concerned, they are all pramanas. Understand, where is the pramanyam? There is no ultimate pramanyam in these eyes, etc. because they only produce knowledge of the duality. Within the realm of duality, they are pramanas. When it comes to the non-dual self, they are all, again, not pramanas. There is only Brahma. Okay, now, continuing with Ratna Prabha. Nanu yaduktam anvaya vidirekabhyam vyavahara adhyasa karya iti tadayuktam karya vidusham. That karya should be removed from there and should be added with adhyasa karya, by the way. There's a printing error. I don't know what is in that book, big book. Adhyasa, that's the proper thing. Nanu yaduktam anvaya vitirekabhyam vyavahara adhyasa karya iti. You said anvaya vidirekabhyam. What is anvaya? In the waking and the dream, when the adhyasa is there, vyavahara is there. In the deep sleep, when adhyasa is not there, that's vidireka, vyavahara is not there. So why is anvaya vidireka? You showed that vyavahara adhyasa karya. Vyavahara is a product of adhyasa. iti. This is what you showed us. Tadayuktam. That's not right. They want to find an exception to that. If you find an exception to that, that rule, has to be dismissed. So they want to find one exception. What is it? Vidusham adhyas abhavepi vyavahar drustehe. Now please tell us, do the enlightened people or the wise people, do they have adhyasa? No. When adhyasa is there is samsara. We say that the wise person is free from samsara. Meaning what? He is free from adhyasa. And still the wise person is seen to do vyavahara. So in absence of adhyasa also vyavahara can take place. How do you insist that vyavahara can take place only when adhyasa is there? You said that by Anvaya Vyatireka, that waking in dream, adhyasa is, so vyavahara is. In deep sleep, adhyasa is not, so vyavahara is not. And therefore you say that vyavahara is invariably accompanied by adhyasa. Or adhyasa invariably accompanies vyavahara. So here is an exception. A wise person is an exception. So even though there is no adhyasa, vyavahara takes place. Vasishtha, Vamadev, all of these people also, and Vedavyasa, Shankara, all of them walked around. They did all kinds of things, otherwise this would not have been with us. That shows that they did perform the vyavahara. And suddenly you cannot say they were ignorant. That means adhyasa was not there and still vyavahara was there. So here is a case where vyavahara is there without the adhyasa. So you cannot say that vyavahara always calls for adhyasa. Vidusham adhyasa abhavati vyavahara drastehe. We find the vyavahara in the vidwan or the wise people, even though they do not have adhyasa. Ityatha aha. And so the Bhashyakara answers this. Pashvadivishchayati. Says Bhashya, Pashvadivishcha Avishesha. But this is the Sangraha Vakya, like a sūtra. Pashvadivishcha Avishesha. Not talking about wise people. Ignorant people we talked about. Not talking about the wise people. The wise people are like pashus, they are like animals. That means there is a similarity between wise people and animals. Would you believe that? So there is a similarity. Please tell us, do the animals have adhyasa or not? They definitely have adhyasa. Oh, cow doesn't know that it is Satchidananda Atma. Cow may know that the other one is a donkey and other one is a dog, etc. And other one is cow. But then cow definitely takes itself as the body. And so adhyasa is definitely there. And cows and buffaloes, they perform the adhyasa, vyavahara. And adhyasa is invariably there. So this is drashtanta. So ubhaya sammatam. Drashtanta or illustration must be there, which must be acceptable to both the parties. When there are two contenders, what will be presented as illustration? That which is acceptable to both. Otherwise it will not become drashtanta. Ubhayavadi sammatam drashtantam. Suppose I present a drashtanta with which you disagree, then it doesn't become drashtanta. So we present here pashu as a drashtanta. That even that fellow will agree that yes, the pashu or the animals definitely have adhyasa. So in case of animals, the adhyasa and the vyavahara, both of them are together. So adhyasa is there, then only vyavahara is there. And if we can prove that wise people are also comparable to animals in some respect, then animals have adhyasa, so wise people also have adhyasa. This is also Pashvadivishcha Avishesha. This is a hetu. The Pashvadivishcha, Drashtanta also is given of the Pashu. And Avishesha, that is the hetu. Sri Ratna Prabha, Cha Shabdaha Shanka Nirasasaha. Pashvadivishcha, Cha means what? Shanka Nirasasaha. That you have Shanka, that wise people do not have adhyasa. Shanka Nirasartha, that there is adhyasa in the wise people also. Pashvadivi Avisheshat, because there is something common between wise people and these animals. The Purva Pakshi asked this question, Vidusham api Vidusham vyavahara drustehe. He said even the Vidwan means a wise person or a learned person. Vidwan means a learned person. The learned person are also seen to conduct vyavahara. And at least that much credit we give them that they do not have adhyasa. Therefore, this learned person was given as an example to show that there is a vyabhichara. You said that yatra yatra vyavahara tatra tatra adhyasa. This is what you proved by Anvaya Vyatireka. There is vyabhichara. An exception is given there in the Vidwan. Now we ask him the question, what do you mean by Vidwan or a learned person? Says, Kim Vidvatvam Brahmasmi iti sakshatkara uta yauktikam atmanatma bheda jnanam. What do you mean by Vidvatvam? Meaning wisdom. Brahmasmi iti sakshatkara. So by the wise person do you mean one who has a direct knowledge or who abides in the knowledge Aham Brahma, meaning Brahmajnani. Is what you mean by Vidwan? Uta yauktikam atma anatma bheda jnanam. Or another person who is a Viveki but who has only Paroksha Jnanam. So by the wise person do you mean the one having a Paroksha Jnanam or Paroksha Jnanam? So Paroksha Jnanam is there and intellectual understanding is there that Atma is different from Anatma. However, that realization of the direct knowledge is not there. So there is a Paroksha Jnani and Paroksha Jnani. Which one do you mean by the word Vidwan? Adye, if by Vidwan you mean the wise person Brahmajnani, Bhadita Adhyasa Anuvritya Vyavahara iti Samvaya Sutre Dakshate. So in the fourth sutra, which is called Samanvaya Sutra, Tattu Samanvayat, Bhashyaka is going to say, Bhadita Adhyasa Anuvritya Vyavahara. Even wise people such as Vasishtha etc., they conduct their Vyavahara by what they call Bhadita Adhyasa Anuvritti. Bhadita Adhyasa Anuvritti. So Adhyasa is there, but Adhyasa is Bhadita. What do you mean Bhadita? It is negated or falsified. Meaning wise person has a knowledge that this is Adhyasa. This is called Bhadita Adhyasa. To know Adhyasa is Adhyasa, meaning that Adhyasa has been falsified. It cannot be eliminated because it is a natural process. For example, when you see mirage water, where in fact there is only sand, then a wise person knows that this is sand or desert and not mirage water. But that knowledge does not eliminate the appearance of mirage water, because mirage water is a product of certain factors which have nothing to do with the knowledge or ignorance of mirage water. And similarly also this sense of aham mama or sense of the individuality is what we call sahaja tadatmya. Wherever the antahkarana is there the Chaitanya is reflected, and therefore this sense, this individual entity is there. Knowledge is not going to destroy that individual entity. Knowledge only is going to destroy the notion that individuality is true. Any treatment you give to the eyes will eliminate the disease in the eyes, not eyes themselves. And similarly also the disease in Pramada will be eliminated by knowledge, not Pramada himself. What's the disease of Pramada? That I am a Pramada. That's his disease. That is eliminated by knowledge, not Pramada himself. He knows that this Pramatritvam is merely an appearance. It is merely a role that I am playing. In fact, I am Brahma Satchidananda. Like an actor who deliberately does the Vyavahara, knowing fully well that he is not a beggar or not a king, and still performs the Vyavahara of a beggar or a king, there is an adhyasa involved. Because an actor as such is not king, nor in his normal day-to-day behavior will he act as a king. But when he comes to stage, he acts as a king. How? When he deliberately carries out the superimposition, I am king. So there is a knowledge that of his true identity, and still there is a adhyasa of kingdom, of kingship. Such a thing can be there, and that is the kind of a situation with a wise person, that there is knowledge of the true nature of the self at the same time, on account of the fact that there is a natural association of this Atma Anatma, or this individual entity is there, and since the individual entity itself is not destroyed by knowledge, therefore the knowledge is there, but the functioning of the individual entity continues to remain. So, Adye Bhadita Adhyasa Anuvritya Vyavahara Heti Samanvaya Sutre Vakshate. Says Purnanandiya. साक्षात्कारः इति अपरोक्षानुभव इत्यर्थः. साक्षात् अपरोक्षानुभव. यौक्तिकम means what? Yuktijanyam ityartha. So yuktijanyam atmanatma bhedajnanam. Anatma is anitya, jada, nitya, drusya, etc. Atma is nitya. So this is how you know the distinction. But to know that nitya atma as such would be called aparoksha jnanam. Anumanadijanyam ityava. This is what they call intellectual knowledge, meaning born of inference, etc. So atma iti, what is this? Atma anatma bheda jnanam. Atma hi anatma bhinna hi paroksha jnanam ityartha. The atma is different from anatma. This kind of paroksha jnanam would be called yauktikam jnanam. Now, bhadita adhyasa anuvritya vyavahara. Purnanda explains that word bhadita. Aparoksha jnanena bhadita abhasikrita adhyasa bhadita adhyasa. So by the aparoksha jnanam, by the knowledge of the true nature of oneself, namely, aham Brahma, or I am limitless, I am a complete being. By that knowledge, this adhyasa, that I am an individual, is bhasitaha, abhasikritaha. Meaning that the sense of individuality is merely an abhasa, an appearance, and not a reality. What was so far taken as reality on account of ignorance, now is known as just an appearance. So mirage water, which was taken to be real water on account of ignorance, is now known to be an appearance. And that is how mirage water is not destroyed, appearance is not destroyed, appearance is known as appearance. And that is enough. Otherwise what happens, you see water, you are driving there, you maneuver your car this way, you have to avoid that water. Now you won't do that. You will merrily drive along, even in through water, because you know very well there is no water. That makes all the difference. You are trying to avoid that duality and all kinds of things because you think it is real. And that's what we call samsara. Now you know there is an appearance and therefore there is no problem at all. And so the problem is not because there is an appearance of duality. Problem is because that the appearance is given reality. Problem is not because there is an individual entity. Problem is because that entity is taken to be really individual. So sense of individuality is taken to be real. That's the problem. Not that there is a sense of individuality. Otherwise, why would there be drama at all? Dramas would not be there. You deliberately assume roles and enjoy them. There will be no sport at all. There is one ball and 11 fellows this side, 11 fellows